This is big time. Boy, we're not feeling it today. But a couple stories I wanted to talk about. So let's probably talk about why I think you haven't heard about the shooting yet. From the Post Millennial, suspect in Michigan State University shooting found dead from self inflicted gunshot, at least 3 people killed. There is no longer a threat to campus and the shelter in place has been lifted. Hmm. I think I know why you haven't heard about this. Black, or maybe he's. Oh, yeah. I'm going to say black. The suspect in the Michigan State University shooting was found dead off campus late Monday night from an apparent self inflicted gunshot wound. MSU Police Interim Deputy Chief Chris Rosman said there was no longer a threat on campus and the shelter in place has been lifted. This truly has been a nightmare that we are living tonight, but we have remained laser focused on the safe. That's all stupid. It happened, right? That doesn't mean anything. Police have earlier described the suspect as a black male. There we go. That's why it's not being covered by Joy Reid. Shorter in stature, red shoes, jean jacket, baseball cap that is navy with a lighter brim. Rosman said the deceased individual matched the description of the suspect but did not reveal the identity. Why? He's dead. During a press conference late Monday night, Rosman said 3 people had been killed and 5 were hospitalized. Some in critical condition were transported to Sparrow Hospital. Oh, essentially sensitive. I understand. Sensitive content because he's black. That's all that means from Twitter. You suck, Musk. Police responded to reports of an active shooter at Michigan State University in East Lansing Monday night, and students were ordered to shelter in place. The incident took place at 818 inside Berkeley Hall, the location of MSU's Department of Sociology and the northern boundary of the campus. The shelter-in-place order went out at 8:31 p.m., telling students to stay inside and barricade themselves. But I'm sure you'll tell them they're not allowed to carry on campus, right? I mean, a black person went on campus. I guess signs that say no gun zone, don't stop shootings, huh? Run, hide, fight. How? Run means evacuate away from danger if you can do so safely. Hide means to secure in place. And fight means protect yourself with no other option. How? He has a gun. You think people lifting weights is fat phobic? According to authorities, the suspect walked to the MSU Union, approximately 19 minutes away from the initial shooting site, and opened fire. Hundreds of officers from everybody showed up after it happened, from the FBI, ATF, still assisting on all campus. Yeah, okay, right. So in other words, after it happened, the cavalry came after it was over. Yeah, all right. Can students carry guns on campus now? Of course, this is a national news. A black guy shoots up a college and nothing. They're suppressing this more than the fucking Chernobyl event that happened in Ohio. What's it like to be black? You can literally murder people and no one will talk about it. Talk about black privilege. Oh my gosh. Next story. Democrats' unconstitutional crusade to disbar Texas AG Ken Paxton shows how far they'll go to win elections. Democrats are working overtime to make it so painful. Well, it's not like Republicans do anything anyway. I'm just reading this story because, who's the greater evil? And, but they don't do anything anyway. The Republicans, I mean. At least some of the Republicans are standing up for kids, 5 years too late. But a state court judge refused to halt the Texas bar's assault on Attorney General Ken Paxton for his decision to challenge several swing states' execution of the 2020 election in Texas v. Pennsylvania. A little notice perfunctory order published in late January revealed. While the partisan targeting of Paxton represents but one of the many attempts by Democrats to weaponize state bars to dissuade attorneys from representing Republicans, court documents obtained by the Federalist reveal that in the case of the Texas Attorney General, the bar went nuclear. Right. So eroding your amendment to an attorney, right? In March of 2022, Paxton prepared to face Land Commissioner George P. Bush in the May 2022 GOP runoff for Attorney General. News leaked, I'm sure, that the State Bar of Texas intended to advance an ethics complaint against the Republican Attorney General. Then, soon after Paxton prevailed in the primary on December 25th, 2022, the Commission for Lawyer Discipline, which is a standing committee of the State Bar of Texas, filed a disciplinary complaint against Paxton in the Collin County, Texas District Court. While the Texas Bar's disciplinary complaint represents an outrageous and unconstitutional attack on the Attorney General, as will be detailed shortly, the backstory is nearly as troubling. Both the machinations underlying the charge against Paxton and, more broadly, the barrage of politicized bar complaints pursued against Republican lawyers who provide legal advice or litigated various issues in the aftermath of the November 2020 general election. The D.C. Bar's investigation into former Trump administration Assistant Attorney General Jeff Clark, based on a complaint from Senator Dick Durbin, a Democrat from Illinois, exemplifies the partisan co-opting of the various professional responsibility boards charged with overseeing attorneys' conduct. In Clark's case, the ethics charge was both demonstrably false and premised on the fraudulent narratives pushed by the partisan politicians running the January 6th show trial and their partners in the press. Yet Clark has been forced to fight for his livelihood because the D.C. Bar allowed Democrats to convert a disagreement over Clark's legal opinion into a question of professional ethics. Oh, I see. So if you disagree with us, you have to be in prison. Is that it? Clark has attempted to put a halt to the proceedings by moving to remove the case to the federal district court, but Clark's motion has been stalled there for several months. More recently, the California State Bar joined in the political witch hunt while it filed a 35-page, 11-count disciplinary complaint against attorney and former law professor John Eastman. The California State Bar's complaint alleged Eastman's engagement in a course of conduct to plan, promote, and assist then President Trump in executing a strategy unsupported by facts or law to overturn the legitimate results of the 2020 presidential election by obstructing the count of electoral votes of certain states. As I wrote at the time, the 11 charges against Eastman proved troubling throughout, with the State Bar of California proposing to discipline Eastman for presenting legal analysis to his client, Trump, and for speaking publicly on his views about the election. With the bar even attempting to hold Eastman responsible for any violence that occurred on January 6th. Well, by that logic, if words equate to violence, or the new term, which is sarcastic terrorism, whenever a black kid kills a group of people and they're listening to a rap song, by this logic, shouldn't the rapper go to prison? Oh, that's right. They're black. Slavery. I forgot. The disciplinary complaint also misrepresents numerous arguments Eastman and others made concerning the 2020 election, falsely equating claims of violations of election law with fraud. Eastman's long and costly battle against the California bar is only beginning, and that is precisely the point of involving state bars, because you can't win against the government. The idea is they drown you out and stretch it out for years that you run out of money. That's the plan. It's like what Tom Cruise said in A Few Good Men. I'll file so many briefs that you'll go blind on paperwork. And that's the strategy, to make you run out of money. You can't win against the state. The state can just increase. Right. To make it so painful for attorneys to represent Republicans in election cases that the next presidential candidate or senatorial or congressional candidate will be unable to find lawyers willing to battle on their behalf. So that means that the Republicans have to circle their wagons and just give each other money. But they won't. These efforts are well coordinated and well funded, with the Group of 65 project launching in March of 2022 ethics complaints against 10 lawyers who worked on election lawsuits following the 2020 presidential election. According to Influence Watch, 65 Project was devised by Democratic consultant and former Clinton admin official Melissa Moss and is managed by attorney Michael Tedder, a former litigation associate with the DNC-connected law firm Perkins Coie. David Brock of Media Matters fame, Media Matters, advises the group, and the advisory board includes, among others, the former U.S. Senate Majority Leader Tom Dash, Democrat, South Dakota, The 65 Project reportedly, quote, seeks to disbar 111 lawyers from 26 states in total, but is, quote, not targeting any Democratic aligned attorneys who have challenged election laws or results in the past, right, unquote. Rather, the project's sole aim is Republican lawyers, such as Eastman, with the group pushing for Eastman's disbarment from the Supreme Court bar. It is not merely private attorneys the Democrat Project targets, however. In September, the 65 Project filed complaints against the attorneys general of 15 states, including Alabama, Arkansas, Florida, Indiana, Kansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Missouri, Montana, Nebraska, Oklahoma, South Carolina, Tennessee, Utah, and West Virginia, advocating the bars in those states take disciplinary action against the attorneys general for conduct related to the 2020 election. Texas AG Paxton didn't make the list, though, because local Democrats had already taken up the charge. And here, the backstory reveals the troubling politicization of state bars is not limited to Democratic-connected groups like the 65 Project or to the bars in leftist locales such as D.C. and California. In Paxton's case, the state bar received at least 85 complaints about Paxton related to Texas v. Pennsylvania, where I live. The Office of Chief Disciplinary Counsel reviewed the complaints and dismissed them, finding the information alleged did not demonstrate professional misconduct. But then 4 attorneys appealed the dismissal, including one who, according to court filings, was the president of the Galveston Island Democrats and a friend of a Democrat seeking to run against Paxton for attorney general in the then up-and-coming 2022 election. Isn't that a conflict of interest? I mean, I don't know. An appeals body within the Texas State Board reversed the dismissal of the complaints, and later a 5th complaint was added to the charges against Paxton. Paxton was then forced to respond to the allegations, which itself proved difficult because they consisted of vague rhetoric, such as claims that Paxton violated his duty and obligations as a Texas attorney and filed an utterly frivolous lawsuit bringing shame and disrespect to the state of Texas and the legal community of Texas. I don't understand. I thought everybody was entitled to representation from an attorney, right? This seems to be the way to get around the Constitution. Nevertheless, Paxton filed a detailed response, expanded on the theories Texas asserted in the Texas v. Pennsylvania case, and provided the bar with an extensive discussion of the factual and legal basis underpinning the court filings. The Texas bar then handed the complaints over to what Paxton described as an investigatory panel comprised of 6 unelected lawyers and activists from Travis County. Kind of like what happened for what's the gaming company? Twitch. They had a bunch of women self-elect themselves, and they started making fun of male gamers because the male gamer would say hurty words on their stream, and then the women would get those people kicked off of Twitch because they said hurty words. It's like a bunch of women who basically are ugly and don't look like Pokimane or Asmarath, the girl who's married. The girl that streams in a hot tub on a big hot dog, and hey, look, they make, they're millionaires, right? So the ugly girls who can't make money form a little union, a little board, and then they kick men off who make more money than them because they As Paxton later court filings would stress, as a group, the panel donated thousands of dollars to federal, state, and local candidates and causes opposed to Attorney General Paxton. What's more, Paxton argued in opposing the bar's case against him. Members of the panel voted consistently in Democratic primaries for over a decade. Several have maintained highly partisan social media accounts hostile to Paxton. Unsurprisingly, the partisan panel found just cause existed to believe that Paxton had violated a catch-all provision of the rules of professional conduct, namely the canon prohibiting attorneys from engaging in conduct involving dishonesty, fraud, deceit, or misrepresentation. But in making this finding and filing a disciplinary petition in the state court, the Texas bar wholly ignored the fundamental flaw in its crusade against Paxton and one of constitutional dimension. The state bar, as a bureaucratic arm of the judicial branch, violates the Texas Constitution's guarantee of separation of powers by challenging Paxton's execution of his duties as Attorney General. Paxton concisely exposed this reality in his briefing, first quoting Texas precedent that teaches the Texas separation of powers provision is violated when one branch unduly interferes with another branch so that the other branch cannot effectively exercise its constitutionally assigned powers. The commission's suit against the Attorney General violates the separation of powers doctrine, Paxton continued, because the decision to file Texas v. Pennsylvania is committed entirely to the Attorney General's discretion. No quasi-judicial body like the commission can police the decisions of a duly elected statewide constitutional officer of the executive branch. Well, basically, if you don't obey the Democrats, you're a terrorist. In seeking the dismissal of the state bar complaint against him based on separation of powers principles, Paxton's argument shows the politicization process becomes nuclear when the target is the state's attorney general, writing, quote, unelected administrators from the judicial branch attempting to stand in judgment of the elected attorney general, who is the sole executive officers with the authority to represent the state of Texas in the Supreme Court of the United States, unquote. While it is bad enough that the state bar has been used as a sword to attack political enemies, such as Eastman in California and Clark in D.C., to deter attorneys in the future from representing unpopular cases or parties, the weaponization of the state bar against the state's attorney general is not different in degree, but a difference in kind, as Paxton wrote. No other attorney in Texas, no one else on the planet can bring a lawsuit on behalf of the state. We've got an administrative arm of the judicial branch, unelected state bureaucrats telling the chief legal officer of the state of Texas how he can exercise his sole prerogative and his exclusive authority to bring a civil lawsuit on behalf of the state of Texas. Yet unelected bureaucrats, many of whom are political enemies of Paxton, have put the attorney general literally on trial for exercising the executive function with which he was constitutionally charged. And while Paxton fully briefed his position that as a matter of constitutional law and the doctrine of separation of powers, the court lacked jurisdiction to proceed on the bar's complaint against him. The trial judge summarily rejected Paxton's motion, merely stating the motion was denied. Paxton has yet to state publicly whether he plans to appeal the denial of his motions to dismiss to the Texas Court of Appeals, but as a matter of principle, he should. This case represents not merely an attack on him personally, but on the position of Attorney General. Oh, I like how they have copies. Oh. And they're coming for women's spaces. I think the title says everything. Not even sure I can say it. Man who sexually aid infant quietly moved to prison with mother-baby unit after transgender claim. This article contains graphic descriptions of child abuse and physical injury. Oh, I chose this, so. A Canadian man who was convicted of the horrific SA of a 3-month-old infant. Why are you still alive? Okay. So I was told not to present my opinion of this person. I was told to be more objective by someone I think is weak. So I will show what I think of this person. If anyone causes one of these little ones, those who believe in me, to stumble, it would be better for them to have a large millstone hung around their neck and to be drowned in the depths of the sea. Do you understand? Back to the story. So this person who committed a horrible, unspeakable crime against a 3-month-old infant has begun identifying with a mental disorder while incarcerated and is currently being held in a woman's correctional facility with a mother and child unit. In 1997, Adam, I don't care, Labocan essayed a 3-month-old baby boy in Quesnel, British Columbia. Labocan was 15 years old at the time and had been hired to babysit the child. The infant was so brutally injured by the attack that he had to be flown to Vancouver, 410 miles away, to undergo reconstructive surgery. After committing the horrific assault, Labocan mutilated himself and ate his own flesh. During the trial, an expert witness stated that Labocan displayed everything from transsexual to pedophilic tendencies. Oh, you think? Displayed or performed. A forensic psychiatrist who examined Labucan testified that even he believed himself to be a danger to the public. He said he was not planning a life of crime, but he felt he had no way to control the flood of violent, murderous fantasies, Dr. Ian Postnick told the BC Supreme Court. Postnikoff further detailed how he met with Labucan several times at the Youth Containment Center in Prince George after the teen was convicted in 1997 on the sexual assault charges. While in custody, Labucan chewed on his wrists, resulting in serious self-mutilation. While in custody, he would turn them against himself, but this high level of self-mutilation, almost cannibalization, could be turned against other weaker individuals with possibly fatal consequences. Right, so in other words, he has to be isolated. I get that. He said that biting himself tended to ease the anger and frustration, Postnikoff said during court proceedings. In one instance, he chewed on his arm for 30 minutes, ingesting fat and muscle tissue. The forensic psychiatrist said that he believed intensive treatment would be... Why? Bro, you essayed a 3-month-old toddler. What? You can't be saved. Why? With the history and severity of the offenses of Mr. Labucan, it's difficult to say how long his treatment would last, he said. He's not a regular sex offender. I would say none of them are. I would say it would be a very long time, possibly years. I don't care. Why are we trying to save him? According to a 1999 news report by the CBC, clinical psychiatrist Dr. Steve Sigmund testified in court that when he examined Labucan in 1997, the teen had also admitted to drowning a 3-year-old boy in Quesnel in 1993, which I'm sure no one... Right. Labucan was 11 when he allegedly committed the killing, and no charges were ever lodged against him because under the law, an accused must be at least... So it's true? It's true? An accused must be at least 12 years old. The child's mother told Dolores Douche, that's what I'm calling her, told the court that she wanted Labucan to remain in prison for the rest of his life. They thought it was an accident, but inside I knew it wasn't. I don't know. I guess a mother just knows inside that feeling, she said. As the court considered his case, Sigmund testified that Labucan had described having sexual fantasies about children under the age of 3, and that he had a history of sexually aggressive behavior at school. Due to the horrific nature of the crime, Labucan was handed a rare, indeterminate prison sentence in 1999 at the age of 17 and was declared the nation's youngest criminally violent sex offender. But despite the violent and sexual nature of his crimes, he's now identifying as a woman and has been transferred to a prison, to Fraser Valley Institution for Women in Abbotsford. Oh, of course. So now those women are safe, right? While it is unknown when Labucan officially began transitioning or having a mental disorder, a recently surfaced dating profile from 2018 shows the convict boasting of his vagina and breast implants. I have a mental delusion and I was born a man, but now after surgery, I became a full woman. Why are you still alive? Why are we, and who paid for that? So he was a prisoner. So he had 2 operations. So potentially they castrated this person and gave him, who paid for that? Some past news reports speculated that the convicted breast implants were paid for by taxpayers and estimated the cost of $10,000. However, Corrections Canada responded to the inquiry by stating that such expenses were not covered by the federal government. It is therefore believed the province of British Columbia directly funded the surgery. Why? This person was sent to prison as the youngest sex offender ever. Why? The Parole Board of Canada has repeatedly denied Labucan's requests for release over the years. Oh, well, that's one thing you're actually doing. In a December 2010 parole review, the board concluded that a series of aspects suggested he remain a threat to the public, including his gender identity, impulsive behavior, violence, and sexual deviance. You think? Of particular concern, officials said, was Labucan's past confession to murdering a young child. According to your correctional file, while in a fit of anger, you pushed your victim into a pond, parole board members noted. Officers emphasized the criminal's bizarre sexual behavior and prior incidents listed to his correctional file of the sexual abuse of his younger relatives and friends. Mutilation of your penis has also occurred, with you claiming you want to be female, the board said. By 2010, he had attended 7 parole hearings, and his confusion was mentioned at each meeting. The parole board was also told how Lubikin had been prostituting himself to other prisoners and using drugs. He was found with a rudimentary handmade knife and had been threatening to kill a female guard. Well, the threats of killing guards and shanks or shivs in prison are not new. But again, there is a difference between a prisoner who complies and there is a difference between a prisoner who is violent. Although it is unclear exactly when Labucan was transferred to the women's correctional facility in April of 2010, the Toronto Star reported on another rejected parole appeal while referring to him with feminine. I don't care. The year prior, I would just refer to you as, pedo. Although it is unclear exactly when Labucan was transferred to the women's correctional facility, in 2018, the Toronto Star reported on another rejected parole appeal while referring to him with feminine. Why? Why do you even enter? The year prior, 2017, he had appealed for release on the grounds of bias against him on the part of the board. The poor pedo. And it would appear that by this time he had already been transferred to the Fraser Valley Institution for Women. Labucan had been assaulting female inmates and, according to reports, flung another inmate by her hair, then kicked her in the face. Yeah, it's almost like he's stronger than them. No, that's weird. His latest parole appeal was denied last year in a September 20th ruling. According to members of the parole board, Labucan's most recent psychiatric assessment determined he was at a high risk of reoffending and was therefore deemed a potential danger to society. The board also highlighted his emotional outbursts, disrespectful behavior, and drug use as risk factors that indicated his actions could escalate if released from prison. Labucan's case will be up for review once again in October of 2024. Oh, good, he might get out. Though if his appeal is denied, there will be a possibility he will remain incarcerated with women inmates for the rest of his life, as decades of psychiatric evaluations have asserted that he has a poor prognosis for complete rehabilitation. Fraser Valley Institution for Women features a minimum security annex that hosts a program for incarcerated mothers and their babies. The mother-child program takes place in a house comprised of facilities such as a shared kitchen, lounge, and bathroom, as well as multiple bedrooms. It is situated within a compound of similar housing units, much like a neighborhood. Other inmates who are not mothers themselves may be permitted to stay with the mother, and child can even apply to serve as babysitters or aunties, though they may be subject to a risk assessment, a National Post report revealed. You're bringing children to the prison. You have a sadistic monster, and you're going to bring children to the monster. The family must undergo an assessment by a child welfare agency prior to gaining approval to have a child reside on prison grounds. You bring children to prison. You bring children to the prison. You bring children to a pedophile. It would be one thing if the pedophile was dressed like Anthony Hopkins from Hannibal. Where like his hands and feet are bound and he's wearing a mask. Again, this guy has cannibalistic tendencies, so he has to wear a mask to restrain him from biting you. But if permission is granted, children can reside full-time with their mothers up to their 5th birthday and part-time up to the 7th birthday. So children live there. Oh, that's wow. So children can live around pedophiles who sexually assault them. Wow, that's unbelievable. An advocate for the rights of incarcerated women made direct mention of Lubrican's situation at Fraser Valley in a 2021 brief to members of the House of Commons. Addressing the Standing Committee on Public Safety and National Security, Heather Mason told members of Canada's federal government that multiple women had reported being the victim of sexual harassment by trans-identified males who had been placed in female institutions. One of these women reported that while in the mother-child program, two mentally confused individuals with convictions for pedophilia Madeline Harks and Tara DeSosa would loiter near her and her child, making sexist and inappropriate antagonizing comments, Mason said in her statement. So women aren't even safe in prison with their children. So they're not protecting children in prison. Harks, whose given name is Matthew, is a serial pedophile who has been described as having quote, all-encompassing preoccupation in sexually abusing young girls, unquote. Authorities believe he targeted at least 60 victims before being charged for approximately 200 offenses related to sexual abuse. In 2019, a sexual assault report was filed against him by a female inmate, but no charges were pursued. That same year, the former deputy commissioner for women, Kelly Blanchett, revealed that all of the requests for men to transfer into women's prisons, half were from convicted sex offenders. Mason shared with Redux exchanges she had with women being held in Fraser Valley. One inmate confirmed that Labucan was being housed in a unit next to Mother-Child Program residents and said that he had been staring at the children to antagonize the women. The anonymous source continued to describe a frightening interaction she'd had with Labucan. She explained that she'd been invited to attend a volunteer appreciation event and had brought her infant son with her. One of the guards secretly informed her that Labucan was at the event and made her aware of his crimes. Well, that guard had stones. I'll give that guard... Okay, I give a little credit to this guard. One of the guards secretly informed her that Labucan was at the event and made her aware of his crimes against a 3-month-old baby boy. I was told that there was an extremely violent child sex offender present who hadn't been in the presence of a young child in a very long time, she said, adding that her own child was around the same age as Labucan's infant victim. Once I was informed of the sick and brutal nature of the crime against my child, I regretted even going or letting that person set eyes on my child. Labucan, she says, was housed next to the mother-child facility after this incident, at which point his behavior escalated. These accusations of looming around the child program resulted in a dispute in which this trans sex offender picked up and threw a female inmate and charged after her once she was on the ground to continue the assault. Where are the guards? The source explained. Luckily, guards intercepted, but they segregated the female inmate for inciting a reaction, for confronting this trans inmate sex offender for his action. Oh, I see. That's right. The trans person is the victim. Indigenous women make up nearly half the female prison population, according to data from Canada's Correctional Service. Well, you're lower on the victim scale than trans. Compared to the average citizen, incarcerated women are more likely to have a history of physical or sexual abuse and have a higher incidence of mental health issues. Female offenders are also far less likely than men to be convicted for violent crimes. Well, at least you said that. A report released by the Correctional Service in 2022 revealed that 82% of gender-diverse prisoners in Canada who had a history of sexual offending were men who identified as transgender. Almost all had committed their crimes prior to claiming a transgender status. The overwhelming majority committed offenses that caused death or serious harm to their victims, over half of whom were women or children. In June of 2017, the category of gender identity was made a protected characteristic after it was added to the Canadian Human Rights Bill via a controversial piece of legislation known as Bill C-16. The Canadian government claimed the bill had been assessed for its impact on women prior to approval, but has refused to release any details of the assessment's findings. Of course. So to sum it up, they have a man who SA'd a 3-month baby so bad it had to be flown 410 miles to have reconstructive surgery. That man has henceforth now been put in a lax women's facility where they bring children to the prison. They bring the children to the pedophile. Well, that's blackpilling. So anyway, if you're new to the channel, this is the Gun Violence Archive. I also cover defensive gun uses because no one else will. They don't even tell you when black people kill people, so they're not going to tell you you're allowed to defend yourself. So as you can see to date, there's been 67 mass shootings and 128 defensive gun uses. So that's what I cover. So what we have now are strings of teens. Got to follow the context clues here. So we'll stop and listen to the context clues because they're not going to say, black. They're just going to say, you'll see.
Gardner.
And I'm Lauren Adams. A terrifying few minutes in a Bullitt County subdivision early this morning when a crime spree involving a group of Louisville teens ends with shots fired.
Police in Shepherdsville tell WKY more than a dozen teens were in stolen cars trying their luck when one neighbor spotted them and sprang into action. Our Jamie Mays spoke to the woman whose car they had stolen only moments before.
So did he say they were in stolen cars trying to steal more cars? Is that what he said? Let me go back a little bit.
Terrifying few minutes in a Bullitt County subdivision early this morning when a crime spree involving a group of Louisville teens ends with shots fired.
Police in Shepherdsville tell WKY more than a dozen teens were in stolen cars trying their luck when one neighbor spotted them and
So they were already in stolen cars while they were searching out other cars?
sprang into action. Our Jamie Mays spoke to the woman whose car they had stolen only moments before.
A group of Louisville teenagers in stolen cars targeted this Shepherdsville neighborhood just before 4 Saturday morning.
Of course, we're concerned. It's a brand new subdivision and thought it's a nice subdivision.
We have to be vigilant, I guess.
Concerned neighbors shared this surveillance video of suspects checking car doors and leaving. And while these cars
Was that a gun? Let's go back.
suspects checking car
It's a nice subdivision.
We have to be vigilant.
I don't know what the fuck that means. Be vigilant. Why don't they ever say practical shit?
I guess.
concerned neighbors
Yeah, so that's a gun right there. That's right. Diversity, everybody.
shared this surveillance
Yeah, there's the gun. So you have to put these kids down hard. That's the only way.
video of suspects checking car doors and leaving. And while these cars weren't taken, Melanie Goff says her 2014 Nissan Pathfinder was.
I do feel very violated, because that's my personal property.
When her next door neighbor in the Mallard Lake subdivision saw her car being stolen, he jumped in his truck and took off after the suspects.
He was on his
No, I don't recommend that. Now, look, remember, the kid wasn't by himself, all right? Now, we're going to reach the point. Now, this is a double-edged sword because, certain people are being sued. They're trying to make it so you're afraid to defend yourself. But at the same time, they're also getting rid of more police. If you're not aware of what's happening in Memphis, as they have less and less police, this is going to happen, where you're going to have to, the men, the husbands or women are going to have to defend. You're going to have to defend your own neighborhood. We'll keep going.
on the phone with his wife the whole time, so we were standing outside with his wife, and he ended up chasing them down.
When the neighbor got here to Nancy Drive, he tried to block the
So what do we see here? So they drove back to this neighborhood, right? So they might live there. So I wonder who lives here. And
stolen only moments.
I wonder who lives. I wonder who lives here. So they drove from their neighborhood. They don't steal any cars in their neighborhood. They come to steal your cars.
suspect's car, but that car then ran into his truck and took off. Then Goff heard gunshots. 5 rounds were fired at the neighbor from another car containing teens. While he wasn't struck, his car was hit once, and the neighbor returned a shot.
Very scary, and very scary for, his wife as well, because, we were just trying to make sure that he was okay.
3 teens were taken into custody.
But how were you trying to make sure they were okay? What was the point of him talking to you? Like, no offense, you're a woman. You're not there. What is the point of talking to you? I'm. Now they say teens, so, and I see the neighborhood. So going by the context clues, I'm going to say black. Now it's like I don't know what to say, because a lot of people are going to say, well, big time. Oh, you shouldn't have chased after them. Yeah, well, when the police aren't there, it's you. And guess what? If they don't see this is terrible, but you have to face the truth. At some point, they're not going to be stealing cars. At some point, they're going to be breaking into your home. So the question becomes, when will you fight back? So it was one guy versus a bunch of teens. So they left their neighborhood to come steal cars from your neighborhood. And let me tell you, like I said, after they keep stealing cars, that breaking in the homes is next. Okay. See the gun? I don't care about slavery. I don't care about redlining. I don't care about Jim Crow. I don't care. I don't fucking care. You can steal car. You can acquire guns. You can acquire cars. You can clearly get a job. You can push carts. You can clean a floor. You can clean dishes. You can work in a team. You can communicate with other teens. You can all meet up at the same time. You know how to organize. You know how to work together as a group. You have basic mechanical skills to operate a magazine-fed gun. Those are probably Glocks or SIGs. I don't know. Usually these guys carry Glocks or Glizzies or Extendos with the switch on the back. So they can work together. They can do a group project. And they were willing to open fire at a car. There is no way. I don't want restorative justice. I don't want to talk to these people, and I don't care. These teens need to be stopped, The houses will be next. You are going to have to pay armed security in your neighborhood. You're going to have to go talk to your HOA, or you're just going to have to do it yourself. Otherwise, they're going to keep coming back. That's not fair, but I don't know what else to say. They're coming there because that's where they're coming. I always find it strange that I always find it funny, the argument that a lot of black people just overlook. Why didn't you steal cars? I mean, maybe they did steal cars. Maybe they did steal cars from here. They drove back here, so they live there, right? I'm assuming that somebody in those cars lives here. Did they steal cars from these people? Where did they get the cars they stole? So anyway, I mean, I give the guy a lot of credit. I don't know why he was calling his wife, though. Remember, you're one guy by yourself chasing a group of people. What does that mean? You have one gun and they have what, 4 or 5? It is going to come down to that. It's going to come down to either they're going to create a military police, or there's going to be no-go zones where there's no police. I wish I had better news, but I don't. So anyway, I'm big time. That's news to me.